All right, shalom, shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Shem, Rakak Wadash. I want to sing your double honors to the apostles and the bishop elders, a great millstone for teaching his word in truth and sincerity, and for ruling well. Salutations to the elect. Lord willing, we some of those men and women who believe in fear in the name of Yahweh, Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai. Yahweh, brother Gabar Yahweh from GMS Hawaii, coming to you with another lesson. And it was inspired by this video that you see right here in front of you, posted by Elder Apostle Tahar, okay, entitled America, You've Been Had, okay, and so I just did some quick research on the chat GTP, asked a couple of questions, I got a couple of precepts, but yeah, so America has been had, right, by its different lovers, these different nations, right? America is basically the headquarters for the Edomites, right? They're all over the earth. You know, you got Edomites in the UK, you got Edomites in Australia, right? These are major, working points that they use in the world, but America is their top piece. And there's no other nation like America. That's how we know that America is Babylon the Great. It's called by other names too, spiritually Sodom and Egypt, Assyria, Nineveh, right? It's the modern versions of those ancient places, right? America takes a lot of its cues from the ancient cultures such as Rome, because it's Rome all over again too. All right, it's not just the Roman system; it spreads across the world too. America being a militant faction of the Roman beast system, right? And in this place, the Lord has made this place a great place. Matter of fact, let me start off with this precept. There's the book of Jeremiah, chapter, Jeremiah, I believe it's 50, let me see, 57. Okay, it says what? No, might be 53, 50. Just bear with me. Yeah, 51. This is the book of Jeremiah, 51, and, let me see where to start. I'll start at 1. Babylon judged for sins against Israel. And that's ultimately why America is going to be destroyed, for what is done against the Lord's people, right? And on top of that, how they blaspheme the Lord's name. And this is all spearheaded by the Edomites, all right? So Babylon being judged for sins against Israel, this didn't happen to the ancient Babylon, right? Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I will raise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them, that rise up against me in a destroying wind. That destroying wind is going to be that nuclear fire. Okay? And I will send unto Babylon fanners, and they shall fan her, and shall empty her land. This didn't happen to ancient Babylon, but it's going to happen to America. Right? The fanners are these different nations throwing nuclear missiles over here, and they're going to empty this land. For in the day of trouble, they shall be against her round about, right? Which these other nations are going to be against Babylon. It says foreigners will, in the NLT, it says foreigners will come and winnow her, blowing her away as chaff. They will come from every side and rise against her in a day of trouble, man. Right? So, because, America's going to go through trouble too. It ain't just going to be Jacob's trouble, something that's just affecting the Israelites here in America, but also Edom too. Right? Because in that day of trouble, man, so much is going to be happening at one time. These people are going to be extremely perplexed. Right? Verse 3. Against him that bendeth, let the archer bend his bow. And against him that lifteth himself up in his brigandine, and spare ye not her young men, destroy ye utterly all her hosts, man, all her armies. Right? That's going to happen. Right? So it says in the NLT. In verse 3 in the NLT, it says, don't let the archers put on their armor or draw their bows. Don't spare even her best soldiers. Let her army be completely destroyed. And that's what's going to happen with America. And that's how we know that when America is destroyed, it's going to cripple all these nations, right? Because none of these nations are really working autonomously, like on their own. They interdependent on each other, but more so, they're interdependent on these other nations. Real quick, yeah, these countries are interdependent on one another. So when America is destroyed, it's gonna cripple. When America's destroyed, it's gonna cripple all of these nations, man. Right? Not just with particular major trades, but other things that these other countries and nations are dependent on. Saudi Arabia, they're dependent on the oil business. Right? That shit is spearheaded from America. Right? You got different India, they're dependent on the steel business, right? That's wholly interconnected to America. All right, so when America is destroyed, it's going to cripple all these nations. All these nations are going to fall via a domino effect because they're dependent on America. As much as they go back and forth and try to act like they're against one another, they're interdependent, man. So they need each other, right? So this is I typed in this question on ChatGPT. How are countries like China dependent on America? Right? I should have said, how dependent are countries like China on America? But anyway, it says that's a great question. The relationship between China and America is deeply interconnected. Even though they often seem like rivals, here's a simple breakdown of how China depends on the U.S. Export market. China sells a huge amount of goods like electronics, clothing, and machinery. Right? Apostle Tahar brings this out a lot. He speaks about how the majority of your electronics here in America are made in China. Your clothes made in China. Your machinery made in China. It says China sells a huge amount of goods like electronics, clothes, and machinery to the U.S. Americans are some of the biggest buyers of Chinese-made products, which brings a lot of money into China economy. So what's going to happen to China when America is destroyed? And they can't stave it off. Right? The Most High Yahweh Shem Ashai is going to gather all nations in the valley of Jehoshaphat and deal with them. Meaning he's going to gather their armies, their militaries. They're going to fight one another. They're going to have to choose sides. Right? And there's no other country that exports with China and other nations like America does. For a country that supposedly only houses 380-something million people. Right? And these other nations, they like to laud themselves on their numbers. Oh, China's got 1 billion plus people. India's got 1 billion plus people, but they don't consume in the way America consumes, right? They don't have access to the trade and to a buyer, right? So again, it says China sells a huge amount of goods like electronics, clothes, and machinery, right? Because these other nations, they don't have expendable income like America does. To the U.S., Americans are some of the biggest buyers of Chinese-made products, which bring a lot of money into China's economy. Investments. American companies like Apple, Tesla, and many others invest billions in China's factories and supply chain. That investment creates jobs and economic growth in China. Right, but they're all slave jobs because General Mao turned his country into a manufacturing slave country, right? That's what the whole, what is it called? A big step forward or something like that. The big leap forward. That's what that was all about. It's not like these people that work in these factories in China building your Apple computers, your Tesla vehicles, and others. Like they really benefit off of that shit. They're buying mega mansions and houses. No, they're living in small boxes, getting paid pennies on a dollar to manufacture goods that's going to be sold at a 400, sometimes 1,000% price hike. So invest billions in China's factories and supply chains. That investment creates jobs and economic growth in China. Technology and innovation. While China's made big advances, it still relies on some American technology, especially in areas like semiconductors, software, high-end manufacturing equipment. Financial markets. China holds a massive amount of U.S. government debt, U.S. Treasury bonds. They buy it because it's considered a safe investment and it helps keep their currency stable. So what's going to happen to China when America is destroyed, right? They're going to be they're going to be unstable. They're going to be knocked over and they're going to have a bunch of empty Treasury bonds that ain't going to get them shit, right? What's going to happen then? It says global stability. The U.S. plays a big role in keeping global trade routes safe and open. That stability allows China to trade with countries all over the world, not just the U.S. So I always say America is that big cog in the wheel. When this place is destroyed, it's over for these nations, bruh. It's over for the nation. That's why we're going to read Revelation 18, but let me finish Jeremiah 51, right? It says, verse 4, it says, I'll start at 3 again. Against him that bendeth, let the archer bend his bow, and against him that lifteth himself up, Salakia, in his brigadine, and spare ye not her young men. Destroy ye utterly all her host. Thus the slain shall fall in the land of the Chaldeans, and they that are thrust through in the streets. This is America, right? It's also known as the land of the Chaldeans. It says in the NLT, they will fall dead in the land of the Babylonians, slashed to death in her streets, right? For Israel have not been forsaken, nor Judah of his power, of Yahweh of hosts, though their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel. So the Most High haven't forgotten his people. Where these other nations, they believe that the Lord has forgotten us, especially the Edomites. Like you look at America, how our people are treated in America, and as well as around the world, they think that our God just forgot about us. And so they're doing whatever they want to us. And they're oppressing us, destroying us, they enslave us, right? They exploit us. But the Most High didn't forget about us, man, at all. And he's about to destroy these people. Even though our land was filled with sin, that didn't give these nations the right to do what they did to us. So verse 6, it says, flee out of the midst of Babylon and deliver every man his soul. Right, because when all hell break loose and they see America's about to fall, these nations are going to get the hell up out of there. These people that are from these other foreign countries, they're going to be trying to escape. Why? Because they don't want to be caught up. Be not cut off in her iniquity, for this is the time of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai's vengeance. He will render unto her recompense. Right? In the NLT it says, flee from Babylon, save yourselves. Don't get trapped in her punishment. It is Yahweh Bashem Yahushai's time for vengeance. He will repay her in full. Right? Verse 7, Babylon have been a golden cup in Yahweh Bashem Yahushai's hand, that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine. Therefore the nations are mad. They've drunken her different philosophies, right? Her economic system, right? They've been entrapped in her wars, her trade system, all of that. Everything you can name that America has pushed forth, these nations have drunken a great big cup of that, right? In the NLT it says, Babylon have been a gold cup in Yahweh Bashem Yahushai's hand, a cup that made the whole earth drunk. The nations drank Babylon's wine, and it drove them all mad. And you see that, right? The way they conduct business, the way they indoctrinate their people, the way they put these different philosophies and spirits on them. It says, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her. Take balm for her pain. If so be, she may be healed. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not ill. Forsake her, and let us everyone go into his own country. For her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and is lifted up even as the skies. Right? So these nations going to see judgment coming to this place, and they're going to try to escape. It says we would have helped her if we could, because these nations can't help her. Right? But nothing can save her now. Let her go. Abandon her. Return now to your own land. For her punishment reaches unto heaven, and it is so great it cannot be measured, man. And that's what's going to happen to this place, right? So you see these different nations, and I want to skip to Revelation chapter 18, right? Because Apostle Zahar had mentioned in this right here. I'm gonna play this real quick.
Their prices. This is a high-end clothing, and you'll be amazed at the prices and how much of a sucker you people are here in America, mainly in America. Hey, Revelation 18. Right, I got to go through Revelation 18 again. Maybe I'll do it later, and I'll go into the NLT. They're going to mourn when Babylon is utterly destroyed, because the main reason why they're going to mourn, and China's going to be one of the nations, they're going to mourn because they ain't going to make no more money. Yep. But they ain't going to make money anyway because they're going into captivity.
That's right.
Okay, ISIS.
That's right. These nations, they're gonna mourn because they're not making money. They're not going to mourn because America is being destroyed and the people in America is being destroyed and 2/3 of Jake that's here in America is being destroyed. No, they're going to mourn because they don't have any more influence anymore, right? They can't make money off this whore, right? A whore, anybody can hit. Anybody can get they load off with a whore. Well, that's what America's been. And these nations going to be upset that they don't have that ability anymore, okay? They don't have that ability anymore. So they're going to be frustrated. They're going to be saddened and disheartened. They're going to have all of this merchandise just sitting there because it ain't going to be being bought no more. Right? And these people that are in America, they're none the wiser. They believe, they purchase these, what they think is high-end goods, right? High-end clothing. Really, you just purchasing brands. You don't really know where these brands are made at. These brands are not made in a special factory where only the highest of good, the highest of materials, integrity is creating these brands. No, they're going to these cheap manufacturers in China and other places, but mainly China, right? And they're being wholesale in these stores. A coat that costs a shirt that costs $34 to make, $15 to make. And you really, it's like $15 a piece. So each of these pieces, like this guy got this coat right here. I got the actual video posted up right here, right? These different brands, these sweaters, right? Jake may not know about these sweaters, but these shit that these Edomites and these other nations in America, they wear, right? It costs about $15, $14 for the shirt. They come bring it to America. They sell that shit for like damn near $200, $1,000. If depending on the brand, right? So where you can do that at? Where other place you can do that at? They're not buying these goods in China for $13,000 a piece, $140. They're not buying that, right? Because they don't even wear this shit like that unless they come into America or another European nation and they want to try to fit in. So you see them with these different brands on their bodies, right? They even consume like America. That's part of, I live in Hawaii, and here in Hawaii, a lot of Asians from like Korea, Japan, and China, they come to Hawaii for that American experience, right? They go to other places like New York City and stuff like that, but this is an easier stop for them versus going all the way across the Pacific and crossing America to go to these different places. But when they come, what do? They want to live and dress as Americans. You see the Chinese or the Japanese man here dressed in fucking full Burberry, all these loud, obnoxious clothing brands. Why? Because they want to fit in. They actually take their money and they go to these high-end boutiques. A lot of times they go into these boutiques to buy this clothing, so they can bring it back to their country like China and remanufacture it or reverse engineer it, and so they could sell it. They get the authentic shit. So now they got the authentic material. They go back to China and they reproduce it. These different knockoff brands, and they do the same thing in Korea, right? So they don't mind spending like $1,400 on a purse because first of all, it ain't their money, right? It's a company's money, and they just sent over here to get it and repurpose it. And sometimes you don't even have to do that. They get the plans in China and they make it over, right? And they have these different markets, and then they create these different markets on which they wholesale it. Says we produce, right? What are they producing? They're producing clothing for America's brands. And that's why Apostle Tahar was saying, hey, these Americans, they're stupid. They're none the wiser. And a lot of times Jake ain't, well, you got people now that got, well, I'm going to get back into the chat GPT. You got clothing brands now that go to clothing brands and small companies that go to China and buy wholesale now. But it ain't a lot. Like, people ain't going to China to go shop. Like, they're going there to wholesale, bring it back to America and flip it, create these boutiques and flip it. Well, what's going to happen when America is destroyed? Right? So going back into the chat GPT, right? So I said, I read a course about the relationship between China and America, right? It says, of course, this relationship goes both ways. The U.S. depends on China for cheap goods. rare earth minerals, manufacturing, and more, right? So in a scenario where America is destroyed, let's ask this question. In a scenario where America is destroyed, how would that affect China, right? So it says a heavy question, but very interesting one. Let's break it down carefully. If America were destroyed, economically collapsed, politically shattered, or even physically gone, it would devastate China too. Here's why. Collapse in China's export economy. China economy is export driven. A huge chunk of its factories and workers make products for American consumers. If America vanished, China instantly loses one of its biggest customers, causing mass factory closures, unemployment, and deep economic depression. Financial chaos. China holds over $800 billion in U.S. Treasury bonds. If America is gone, those bonds become worthless overnight. We just said that, right? That would wreck China's banking system and financial markets, possibly causing a full financial crash. Global trade disruption. The U.S. Navy helps protect global shipping lanes like the South China Sea and the Indian Ocean routes. Without American protection, piracy, conflict, and instability would skyrocket, making it hard for China to import energy, food, and raw materials. Political and social instability inside China. Economic collapse would likely cause protests, riots, political instability within China. The Chinese government has a deal with its people. We make you richer, you give us loyalty. If the prosperity stops, the system could start to fall apart. Strategic isolation. A global balance of power would shatter. The global balance of power would shatter. Other rising powers, India, Russia, Europe, regional Asian powers, would rush to fill the vacuum. China could find itself surrounded by rivals without the biggest strategic competitor, the U.S., stabilizing the scene. So imagine this whole type of collapse that would happen to China is going to happen to all these nations. It's going to happen to all these nations, bro. Right? In short, China would suffer badly, not benefit, if America were destroyed. They need America as customers, a financial partner and stabilizer in the world system, even if they don't always like it. You see? So that's why when you read Revelation chapter 18 and it says these nations are going to lament for Babylon, that's why they're going to be crying. Because nobody's going to be buying that shit. Nobody's going to be protecting them. And not only China, but other nations, right? If America is destroyed, how would global markets be affected? Right, global markets. So if America were destroyed, global markets would absolutely melt down. Like worse than the Great Depression, worse than 2008, just total chaos. Here's what would happen step by step. Stock markets worldwide would crash. The New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ are two of the biggest financial markets on earth. Without the U.S. global investors, without the U.S., global investors would panic, yanking money out of stocks everywhere. Europe, Asia, Africa, Latin America. We'd see stock prices fall 80 to 90% or more in some places. Banking systems would freeze. U.S. dollars are the world's reserve currency. Banks, companies, and governments all over the world hold trillions in dollars. If the U.S. collapsed, the dollar's value would evaporate. Banks wouldn't know who owes what to whom. Lending would stop. Credit would freeze. Businesses couldn't operate. Global trade would stop. And look, you see this little ship they have right here. That's why when you read Revelation 18 and 9, let's read this real quick. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise. You see? And a merchant, well, I'm going to read that in a second. But these different nations, they're interconnected into America. America is the big cog in the wheel. And it's crazy because the Lord, Yahweh, it's not crazy, but it's beautiful because Yahweh Bashar Shai is forcing these nations to destroy each other. Right? They all this rhetoric that you hear on TV about America this, America that. If America wasn't here, these nations would be nothing. Right? That's why when America falls, it's going to be such a great fall around the world. It ain't like these nations going to go back into their corners and be like, oh, we could just figure it out ourselves and deal with each other. Absolutely not. They're wholly connected on this whore. Right? She sits on a beast, but she also controls the different nations too, via her system. Right? So going back here, global trade would stop. Remember it said in Revelation chapter 18, verse verse 10, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, there is in 1 hour thy judgment is come, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. Right? Why is that? Because again, where we at? These nations, they need America. Right? And that's why you got Trump running around here acting the way he's acting, because he knows that how interdependent these different nations are with America. So them tariffs don't mean shit. It means something in the small scale, but on the big scale, he knows that America is just as dependent on these other nations as they are on her. So it says the global trade would stop. The U.S. is the anchor for global trade deals and shipping security. Without the U.S. Navy keeping the ocean safe, shipping insurance would skyrocket or become unavailable. Cargo ships carrying food, oil, electronics, everything would sit idle or be pirated. This is where you see this at. In Revelation 18, it says, and the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torments, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour shall our judgment come. Right? Yeah, I'm gonna read this in the NLT. Right? It says, this will stand. It says they will stand at a distance, right? Because they're going to be in their motions. These different nations and their merchants, their merchandise, right? They're going to be floating in them oceans, and they're going to be looking at America being destroyed like, what the fuck? We fucked. No security on the oceans. No security on the land. They're done. They will stand at a distance, terrified by a great torment. They will cry out, how terrible for you, O Babylon, you great city. In a single moment, the Most High's judgment came on you, man. And they're going to see it. So let's go back to this right here. It says global trade would stop. The U.S. is the anchor for global trade deals and shipping security. Without the U.S. Navy keeping the ocean safe, shipping insurance would skyrocket or become unavailable. Cargo ships carrying food, oil, electronics, everything would sit idle and be pirated. Massive energy crisis. Oil is priced in dollars, petrodollars. No America equals no dollar equals total confusion in oil markets. Countries would fight to Salakia. It says countries would fight to lock down oil supplies, leading to wars and supply shocks. Gas prices could spike 10 times or more. Political chaos. Without America acting as a global stabilizer, lots of regional wars would break out. Nations that depend on the U.S. defense protection like South Korea, Japan, much of Europe, might arm themselves fast even with nuclear weapons. And that's going to happen. We already know that's going to happen. So that's why when America is destroyed, brothers, when America is destroyed, this is going to be Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai's magnum opus, bro. This didn't even happen like that in Egypt. When ancient Egypt was destroyed, it affected some of the region, but they were still able to be a regional power. They weren't a powerhouse, but for a long time after we left Egypt, Egypt was still there. It still existed. It just wasn't as powerful as it was, right? But when America is destroyed, bro, it's going to topple the world, bro. It's going to topple the world, right? These nations are not going to know what to do. They're going to be in shambles, bro. In shambles. And there's no contingency plan for that, right? Without America acting as a global stabilizer, lots of regional wars could break out. Nations that depend on the U.S. defense protection, like South Korea, Japan, much of Europe, might arm themselves fast, even with nuclear weapons. Global recession turning into depression. Unemployment would soar everywhere. Mass migrations could happen. Governments could collapse under economic pressure. Basically, you see a worldwide Great Depression 2.0, but probably even worse because how globally connected we are. In summary, the world economy is built like a giant spider web, and America is the biggest knot holding it all together. If it snaps, the entire web collapse. Would you want to draw a quick time on how fast things would fall apart? Like day 1 week? Yeah, why not? It's kind of crazy to think about it. And then they got the fire. They got fire in a time, and they got a fire in a clock right here, man. Because time is going to be ticking. Once the fire hit America, man, it's over. So let's read. I'm gonna hit yes, but we're gonna read the rest of on Revelation 18. Oh man, bro, it's gonna be crazy. This says verse 11, Revelation 18 and 11. It says, the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more. The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones and pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet, all fine wood and all manner of vessels of ivory, all manner of vessels of most precious wood and brass and iron and marble, and cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour, wheat and beasts, sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and slaves of souls of men, and fruits that thy soul lusts after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. Because these are all things that deal with trade, right? These are the things that get shipped here, because a lot of the things that America uses, they don't produce here. These things are produced in foreign lands, and this is how these different merchants and even countries are made wealthy and rich. It's through the abundance of these things, right? Don't listen to Nate tell you that has to deal with Revelation 13 and 16. 15 on down, because that is what he says. This breakdown is completely false. This is dealing with the different countries that do trade here in America, right? These are the things that they sell over here and more, right? And these things ain't gonna be found no more over here because America's gonna be destroyed. And they're gonna have all this product but nowhere to sell it at. They're gonna have all these different things and nobody's gonna be over here to trade with them. And then on top of that, nobody's gonna protect them. And it's gonna be every man for themselves out here. All nations gonna be for themselves. You got pirates on the seas, man. Pirates ain't go nowhere. They still there. They gonna be there to grab up all of that merchandise and fight against it. Ain't gonna be no U.S. Navy to blockade and protect the waters, man. So it says, verse 15, the merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing. Right. You saw right here, where you saw right here with the little boat, the oil, the boat, everything is shipped on the waters, man. It's cheaper than flying that shit in. Right? They ain't say they're gonna be floating in the skies, with all this merch. No, this merchandise gets shipped on the waters, man. And no one's gonna be there to buy this shit. Because America's gonna be gone. No one's gonna be there to protect them. Because America's gonna be destroyed. Her armies are gonna be destroyed. Again, that's why when America destroyed, it's gonna be Yahweh Shem Shai's magnum opus, bro. Right? Even ancient Egypt didn't have that kind of power that America has today, man. It says, would you want me to draw a quick timeline on how fast things would fall apart? Day one, week one, month one. It's crazy to think about. All right, here's a timeline on how the global collapse might play out if America is suddenly destroyed. Day one, a shockwave. Markets crash immediately. Global stock exchange plummet 40 to 50% in hours. Dollar panic. Investors desperately to try to convert U.S. dollars into gold, euros, yen, crypto, whatever seems safer. News chaos. No one knows what's true or what's part of the U.S. government/military are still functioning. Emergency meetings. United Nations, NATO, G7 scramble for emergency talks. Financial system breakdown. Week one. Bank closures. Major banks freeze withdrawals to prevent mass runs. Credit freeze. No new loans. Businesses can't pay workers. Small businesses collapse first. Supply chain stop. Ships, trucks stop moving. Air cargo halts. Fuel shortages, gas lines, and diesel prices skyrocket instantly. Month one, global recession hits. Mass layoff. Tens of millions of worldwide lose jobs. Food shortages, grocery stores, rations, food. Panic buying leads to empty shelves. And that's where the famine gonna come in at. Riots and unrest in major cities around the world. Regional militarization. Countries like China, Russia, India, France, Germany rapidly mobilize troops to secure their borders, which they ain't gonna help. That's not gonna help. That's why when we're saved out of here, we're gonna go up in them chariots for a minute. And all of this shit is gonna be happening down here on America. All this shit gonna be happening down here on the earth, bruh. And that's why when we come down on chariots, we're gonna be fighting against these nations, man. It ain't gonna be really a fight because we're gonna have spiritual powers. But we're gonna enslave these nations, but they're gonna be trying to fight against us, man. America is gone. It's over. It's over for you nations, bruh. Man, I hope that brothers watch this video because, man, this is heavy information right here, bruh. It says tens of millions of worldwide lose jobs. Food shortages in grocery stores. Ration food. Panic buying leads to empty shelves. Riots and unrest in major cities around the world. It says regional militarization. Countries like China, Russia, India, France, Germany mobilize troops and secure their borders. And a lot of these places are going to be destroyed too. Mainly like spots in Russia going to be hit. Right? China's going to be fucked up. France and Germany going to be fucked up. But they're not going to be completely destroyed like America. Right? First wars break out. Over resources, disputed territories, power vacuums. Right? Mind you, the Third World War will break all this shit up too. Because these other nations going to war. They're going to be fighting in the Third World War. So they already going to be stretched thin. They ain't going to be able to do shit. It's like month 3 to 6, full global depression. New alliances, China, Russia, and others try to form a new world order, but it's chaotic and fractured. Ain't going to be no new world order. That's going to be over. Right? Mass migration, millions flee collapsing or unsafe countries looking for food and safety. That's where Second Esdras chapter 16 gonna come in at. Right? Second Esdras chapter 16. I'm sorry, what is it? Second Esdras chapter 16, verse 21 and 22. It says, behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon the earth that they shall think themselves to be in a good case. Even then shall evils grow upon the earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. For many of them that dwell upon the earth shall perish of famine. Remember, because of this, the whole collapse of everything. And the others that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy, man. So people are going to be fucked, bro. Right? People are going to be fleeing from one place to the next looking for food and safety. And they ain't going to find it. collapse of weak states. Countries dependent on the U.S. aid for trade, like some in Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, face famine and government collapse. Right? Come on under here. Come on under here. Go ahead. Yeah. So these nations, they're gonna be facing all of this, man. Famine and government collapse, bro. Collapse of weak states, countries dependent on the U.S. aid or trade, like some in Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, face what? Famine and government collapse. Gold and barter economy. In some areas, people abandon paper money altogether. Year one and beyond. New dark age of rebuilding. Ain't gonna be no rebuilding. It's gonna be dark for y'all, but it's gonna be rebuilding for us, for the Israelites. Power struggles. New global powers emerge, but no single nation can stabilize the world like the U.S. once did. It's over. Localism arises. People rely more on local farming and local trade and community defense. Possibly nuclear conflicts. Well, the nuclear conflict is going to happen when America is destroyed. And as nations race to defend themselves without the U.S. protection, slow rebuilding, some regions start adapting. But the world is poorer, harsher, much less connected. In short, it would feel like the world went back in time 100+ years, but with far more people, far more weapons, and far more chaos. If you want, I could also sketch out the best case scenario versions like some countries manage. Nah, ain't no best case scenario. Ain't no best case scenario. It's over. It's over for you nations, man. It's over. Man. That's why scripture says, Nineveh 3:1, woe to the bloody city, and it is full of lies and robbery, the prey departeth not. Right? Meaning woe, meaning destruction. It says the noise of a whip, the noise of the rattling of the wheels, and of the prancing horses, and of the jumping chariots. The horseman lifted up both the bright sword and glittering spear, and there is a multitude of slain, this is nuclear missiles, and a great number of carcasses, and there is none in of their corpses. They stumble upon their corpses because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot, which is America, the mistress of witchcraft, which is America, that selleth nations through her whoredoms, and families through her witchcraft. Behold, I am against thee, saith Yahweh Bashar of hosts, and I will discover thy skirts upon thy face, and I will show the nations thy nakedness, and the kingdoms thy shame. And I will cast abominable filth upon thee, and make thee vile, and will set thee as a gazing stock. It's over for this place, bro. It's over. All of this came out through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashar Shai from a video that Apostle Hart just posted up, man. America, you've been had. And they have been had. Because they ate all America's allies. They ate her bread, but they laid a wound under her. Obadiah tells you that. Right? So we just saw the worst case scenario for America, for the world, if America collapsed. Right? If America collapsed. Okay, what about if America is destroyed by nuclear destruction? What would happen to the world, global markets? Right? So it says, whoa, that's even worse than economic collapse alone, because it ain't just going to be economic collapse. Right? Because this is going to be happening. If America were destroyed by nuclear weapons, the global markets wouldn't just crash. The entire modern global system would collapse within hours or days. Woo! Shit. Fucking shit. Yo, the Lord gonna make this destruction crazy, bruh. Crazy, man. But I guess I'm gonna save this for another lesson because we already at 44 minutes. But bro, it's gonna be crazy. Stock markets close instantly. Instant dollar collapse. Mass panic amongst governments. Nuclear fear everywhere. Short-term effect. First week, financial banking systems collapse. World trade dies instantly. Oil markets explode. Global food shortages begin. This is even worse than if it was just an economic collapse in America. Man, bruh, this shit is gonna be vile, bruh. Man, matter of fact, I'll just read it. Why not? I know brothers excited. It says, whoa, that's even worse than economic collapse alone. If America were destroyed by nuclear weapons, the global markets wouldn't just crash. The entire modern global system could collapse within hours or days. Here's a breakdown of what would happen. Stock markets close instantly. The first 24 hours. Global trading stops. U.S. markets like the NYSE or New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ would be vaporized. Other countries' stock markets, Tokyo, London, Frankfurt, Shanghai, would slam shut within minutes to prevent total meltdown. It says U.S. dollars become worthless almost immediately. Every nation holding U.S. debt, trillions of dollars, lose its savings overnight. Mass panic among government, emergency lockdowns, martial law in dozens of countries. Global leaders rush to bunkers and secure locations. Other nuclear nations, Russia, China, France, UK, India, Pakistan, etc., go on full alert preparing for possible follow-up strikes. Everyone fears larger world-ending nuclear exchange is coming. The first week, financial and banking system collapse. Major banks in Europe, Asia, and elsewhere seize up. No one knows who will pay debts or how to trade safely. Credit cards, loans, wire transfers stop working. Cash becomes king, briefly. World trade dies instantly. Ships don't sail. Planes don't fly. Ports locked down. No imports, no exports. Countries hoard food, fuel, medicine, and raw materials. Oil markets explode. Oil prices shoot up to unimaginable levels. $500+ a barrel or more if oil is even available at all. Global food shortages begin. The U.S. is a major food exporter. Wheat, soy, corn, beef, etc. Without it, countries like Egypt, China, Mexico, and others face immediate famine risks. We just read that in 2nd Ezra chapter 16, verse 22. Midterm effects. Nuclear winter affairs. If dozens of U.S. cities are obliterated, dust ashes could block sunlight, cooling the planet. Crop failures could start globally. Famine on a scale never seen before. What it say? What it say in verse 22? For many of them that dwell upon the earth shall perish of famine, and others that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. Right? So these nations are gonna be fucked. That's why we need Yahushua, and this is going to happen. Mass migration. People flee dying cities looking for food, water, and shelter. Governments fall one by one. Fragile or poor nations fall into chaos first. Even powerful countries like European powers face enormous instability. And the super elite know this. That's why they're not expecting a lot of people to survive this. That's why the people that get that shit, the ones that survive, they think that they're going to restart humanity. It's not going to happen, Jack. It's not going to happen. That shit's going to fail. Rise of local warlords and militias. In the absence of global trade and food supplies, areas could fall into Mad Max style scenarios, especially struggling regions. Global markets in this scenario, they would cease to exist in any meaningful form. No more stock trading, no more stable currencies, no more international banking. The global economy would shatter into local economies, barter systems, and survival-based trade. A nuclear destruction of America equals not just a market crash, it's the start of a global systematic collapse, possibly leading to a global famine, war, and new dark age. Crazy to think about. If only a few U.S. cities were nuked, not the whole country, and if other nations immediately work together, maybe humanity could be stabilized. It's not. It's not. The whole of America is going to be destroyed. But if America is totally wiped out, the modern world dies. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Call on Yahushua. That's why it's going to be so great. This destruction is going to be so great. It's going to be way better than what the Lord did to ancient Egypt, bro. Woohoo! Oh, man. Oh, man. It says, what would you want me to show you the version where some countries manage? No, because ain't no countries gonna manage. Like, who will be the strongest at the collapse? It's kind of fascinating. Okay, why not? Right? All right, let's dive into it. Countries most likely to survive. Holy, Australia. Yeah, that's what they planning on, but it ain't gonna happen. New Zealand, Switzerland, Russia. Russia ain't gonna survive. Huge land masses. That's why, but it ain't all gonna be destroyed by nuclear fire. Some spots gonna be hit, but it ain't gonna be like America. Parts of South America, Argentina and Chile. Why? Far from global conflict zones, agriculture powerhouse. That's why that's gonna be the new wilderness. Challenges: political corruption and instability could worsen. Technology and medicine shortages. Who would struggle the most? Europe, China, Africa, Middle East, Japan, South Korea. Access to food, access to energy, geographical location. Yeah. Oh, this is going to be beautiful, bro. I can't wait to share this. I hope brothers really watch this video in its entirety because this is a lot of information. It's a lot of information, bro. And I'm going to share it as much as I can. As much as I can, I'm going to share this. I'm going to do another video. I'm going to do another video going through the different scenarios and whatnot, man. So with that, I hope you were edified. I'll say shalom and on to the next.